Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson, thank you so much for joining us. So last week, you tweeted that you had a great meeting with DPD Chief Eddie Garcia, and you said, quote, with the help of a real violent crime reduction plan, the numbers have begun trending in the right direction. Can you elaborate on the trend and on the crime reduction plan?
Well, the new police chief, Eddie Garcia, hit the ground running when he came to Dallas and understood how important it was that we have a plan to reduce violent crime in our city. And it's a plan that was developed not by politicians, but by criminologists. And it's a solid plan. And what we've got to do is to actually give him the resources he needs to implement it fully. And so the plan involves basically targeting the parts of our city where crime is the most concentrated and really focusing on those areas and using those areas as a way to drive down violent crime rates in our city. So we need more officers to do that. And hopefully we'll get more officers in the next budget, and we'll see this plan continue to be successful. It's a few months in and it's already showing results.
And what was it particularly that you think, do you think that the violent crime statistics, do you think the city is turning the corner?
Yeah, the plan is showing early signs of success. It's too early to declare victory. We've had violent crime ticking up in this city for a couple of years now. But since Chief arrived and since his plan has been enacted, we've seen a couple months, month over month, reductions and slowing down the rate of homicides and felony aggravated assaults. So serious crimes, the kind of crimes that lead to homicides. And so I'm very hopeful that this plan is the right plan and that it will work. But again, I can't emphasize enough. We're about to come into budget season. We've got to give him the resources for this plan to work. And it involves increasing the police presence on the streets in the city.
Now, you had proposed last month hiring 275 more officers. And I think when all is said and done, when you consider officers who leave for a variety of reasons, I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, 70 officers over the attrition rate. Is that right?
Right. To put that in plain language for folks, what I'm proposing is a plan that would grow the police department by 70 officers, as opposed to the trend that we've been following in the recent years, which is to budget. Our city manager has been budgeting for the police department to actually shrink. So the original proposed budget for this upcoming fiscal year would have actually shrunk the department by 55 officers. And I'm proposing that we grow it by 70 officers by hiring 275 officers this fiscal year.
As you know, the city manager is going to release his proposed budget on Saturday in the morning. And so I'm wondering, you've had a chance to visit with him and tell him your ideas. What was his reaction?
Well, I won't comment on what I think is going to be in this budget until I see it myself, until he actually proposes it. But he listened. We had a good talk, and I'm hopeful that the city manager and the city council listen to the residents of this city, and that that a year will have made a difference. This time last year, there was a lot of talk about defund the police, reimagine public safety, and all these things. I hope when we sit down this year to do this budget, people will understand that the residents of Dallas want public safety prioritized, that violent crime has been moving in the wrong direction for too long, and that we need to actually invest in public safety by adding to our police department. And so I'm hopeful that we'll have a very different budget cycle this time, and that folks will understand that we really have to do this. This is not really optional. We've got to increase our police force.
And I know you said you're going to wait to see what the city manager proposes. I'm wondering, did he reject your request out of hand? What kind of reaction did he have to your request?
Well, I made the request in writing, and then when we met, our conversation was, it's a good conversation. I'll just say that. I definitely not rejected out of hand, but I do believe that we'll see soon enough. Just how much the city manager is listening to me, and I believe the residents of the city, when we say we want to prioritize public safety and we want to prioritize improving basic services. So hopefully this budget will make an investment in basic services and public safety and do what I think the residents of the city want.
Let me ask you this. Last year, I know some of the constraints that the city was under was because of COVID, and they had to limit the class sizes. We're seeing a little bit of a resurgence, unfortunately, primarily among the unvaccinated. How concerned are you that that is going to become another constraint for the city?
It certainly has the possibility of being a constraint. I hope not. I mean, no one knows what the coronavirus is going to do. I mean, I'm doing my part, and I'm trying my best to encourage everyone to get vaccinated and to wear masks when they're indoors, especially, and in groups, because I want to see this thing get put behind us. But I'm hoping for the best, and what that looks like is a year where we are able to hire as many officers as we possibly can, and budget for hiring up to 275 new officers for our department. And I think we can do that. That's not an unrealistic number. That's in line with what we've done immediately, in the years leading up to the pandemic, and we can do it again. But we've got to make a concerted effort.
And another part of your proposal, or your request, I should say, is to give the police officers and firefighters the market rate increases that they were owed last year but didn't receive. And how open was the city manager to that, do you think?
Again, I'm not going to presume what's going to happen.
Why
At
is it
least,
so important, though?
it's important because it's a commitment that we made, and it's a tool to aid in retention. The reason we have to hire so many officers to try to get back to 2016 staffing levels at the police department is because we've had a lot of people leave the department, and we've not been able to hire to keep pace with the amount of people who leave. That's what we mean when we refer to attrition, how many people leave the department. Part of the way you reverse attrition is to pay the people you have more money so they stay. So when we didn't do last year, which I objected to, I voted against the budget last year because we did not include market pay increases for our officers. What that does when you don't do that is, one, you broke a promise. We had an obligation to do that, and we didn't meet it. And number two, it sends a message to the folks in your department that, hey, we don't value as much as we should, and people leave. People need to feel appreciated, and money in our system is a way you show appreciation. So we need to pay our officers, and we need to pay our firefighters what they're making in surrounding areas. That's what this market increase means. It means paying what other people are paying so we don't lose them. And it makes our lives easier when it comes to hiring officers if we're not losing so many.
And you've also said that this should be a two-way street, in the sense of the city trying to lure officers from other departments in the area, officers who have the experience, they've been on the beat, and would require less training into the DPD system than if they were just a brand new recruit.
I've had conversation with our new police chief about this very topic. He comes from a jurisdiction where that was common. He has a lot of experience with lateral hiring. I told him early on when he got here that I've long believed that we should be more aggressive about hiring experienced officers from other departments. This is a major city. It's a job that people should aspire to, and we actually should go on the offensive and stop being so defensive and going out and trying to recruit other people's officers. And you can't do that if you're not paying people competitive wages. So he is in agreement with that. So I'm hoping to see a more robust lateral hiring program than we've ever seen to help us get to that 275 number, and then grow a little bit every year beyond that till we get to the staffing levels that we need for him to be successful.
You talked about money before, and you still have this whole idea, and your proposals still have to work within the confines of the city budget. And do you think that given that the federal government has given cities COVID relief dollars, that there is more than enough money here for the city to do this?
There's definitely money to do it. We can afford to do it out of the money we've gotten from the federal government. The Biden administration has said, in fact, that they hope cities will consider using the money for these very types of things, these public safety investments that we're talking about. So it's a permitted use for the funds. The funds are there, but it's just public safety is so foundational to a city. It really is something that you have to get right if you want people to continue to move to your city and to invest in your city. And we have to reverse the recent trends in violent crime. And we're already seeing signs that we're moving in the right direction and that the police chief is making some smart decisions, but we've got to make sure he has the resources to continue to implement his plan. And that's what this request of the city manager that I made would do. 275 officers would certainly help move things in the right direction, and quickly, I hope.
Two other questions, Mayor, and I appreciate your time, and that is the overtime issue. Obviously, overtime was cut last year by the council. The overtime has gone over budget. And so I'm wondering, do you think that this is going to be an issue this time, for this next budget?
I'm not in the prediction business really, but I will tell you, I hope that we are not having another debate about whether or not overtime is necessary this year like we did last year. It's no secret. Anybody who's been paying attention to this knows that I was vehemently against the cut to the police overtime budget last budget cycle and voted against the budget in large part because of that cut, because I knew we needed it. I knew that we couldn't afford to not pay our officers overtime. If we didn't have enough officers to adequately police the city, we were going to have to pay the existing officers more money to work longer shifts, to do more of the work. There's just no way around it. And so I knew the cut then was not a good idea. And I think hopefully everyone has come to see that you can't cut overtime until you've actually increased the headcount. So hopefully we'll decrease our reliance on overtime over the years, but we certainly can't be talking about this budget cycle making cuts to the overtime budget while we're still trying to build up the department. It's just not going to work.
My last question to you is, and I know you have to be careful in how you speak with other council members as far as, quorum rules, et cetera, but what reaction have you had from council members you have discussed these issues with?
Well, I'll say this. I'm not hearing any of the rumblings that I heard this time last year about wanting to make, cuts to the police department. That, to be frank, I think we're in response to a lot of national, a national movement and a conversation that was taking place nationally about defunding the police and whatnot. I'm just not hearing that this time. And if I'm looking at the most recent campaigns as any example of where I think people's heads are, again, I'm not really in the prediction business, but I just don't think it's going to be that type of a conversation this time. I think everybody is looking at this a little differently, and hopefully we'll have a real agreement around the idea that public safety, saying that it's a priority, means funding it appropriately. That it's not just something you can say and then go and start slashing overtime and hoping things are going to get better in your city. So I'm hopeful that we'll have something like unanimity around this concept. I really do.
Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson, thank you for joining us, and we appreciate your time. Thank you.